Hey everybody, welcome back to another Thompson Technique Foundation interview. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Jack Donovan, who graduated Palmer School in 1950 and knew Dr. Thompson. Dr. Jack, welcome.
Thank you.
Gosh, what an honor to speak with you. Now, we have never met before, but
No.
I understand you do live in Iowa also.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, well, before you talk about Dr. Thompson, can you just tell us how you got into chiropractic?
Yes, I was drug into chiropractic, kicking and screaming. I come from a family of now maybe 20 some chiropractors, but my dad was the original chiropractor of the family. He had a very remarkable correction of a problem that he had, and he just married, had 3 children, just said, I'm going to chiropractic college. They did everything to dissuade him, but he said, we're going to go. And I was born then after they graduated from chiropractic college. And he came back through the town of Jefferson, Iowa, was getting gas, and he got out, and there was a chiropractic office right next door to them. And he walked over to the man, he said, would you like to sell your business? The man said, yes. And my dad was in business the next day. My mother had to find place, lodging, find, and that made a difference. My dad was single-minded. That's how it started. Well, anyway, being raised in a family like that, where my dad was a chiropractor, he couldn't belong to this, he couldn't do that, couldn't belong to country club, couldn't do this, couldn't do that, ostracized from all the social clubs. And then a Catholic, I was the only Catholic on my football team, and I ate fish on Monday, Saturday, Friday night when we played games. I was feeling pretty bad about myself. I mean, really bad. So I went off to the university. I had a job and to pay for my first 2 years of university. And I was broken. I said to my dad, I need a little help here. He said, well, I can't ever teach anything about chiropractic. So you're going to go to Davenport for at least a semester and see what that's all about. Oh, God, Dad, yeah. I said, that's how it's going to be. I snuck out of town. Didn't tell any of my fraternity brothers, didn't tell anybody. And I went to Davenport, moved in with Lyle Sherman.
Wow.
And started classes with Galen Price philosophy. 6 weeks time, I could have taught philosophy. 6 weeks time, you couldn't get me out of there with a team of horses. I knew, by God, that I was born to do something. And it started just that way. So change thinking changes everything. It was, yeah.
That is wonderful. Yeah, we hear from so many of the great chiropractors that Galen Price was their philosophy teacher. And
Yes.
you think about the impact that he had on the profession through generations of time.
Yes.
What was it like to be roommates with Lyle Sherman?
Oh, Lyle was, he was the epitome of a jester. Everybody wanted to emulate his toggle recoil. And we'll get to claim about that too. But he was a gentleman. He had a lovely family, and he was a class act. Poor businessman, but he was a class act. He knew chiropractic was his thing, and he emulated. He was such a great representative. So he years before this, my brother's chiropractor, and I visited Palmer. When some of my brother was there, and I got the mumps while I was there. True to God. Lyle Sherman adjusted me. My brother also lived with Lyle Sherman when he was there. Adjusted me, and I got on a bus the next day and came home.
Wow.
I felt good. So just crazy.
Wow. What a huge part of chiropractic history that you experienced. And of course, in 1950, BJ was alive and well. And did you get to see him in like weekly assemblies, or how much contact did you have?
No, not very much contact. My dad and BJ were quite good friends. And my dad introduced me to BJ, and BJ looked at me and he said, he better be good. That was all the conversation. Then later, after I was, and I'm sure I saw him when we were in school, but not too many lectures. But I have all of his pit class notes.
Wow.
I had a book this thick and all the pit classes that he had. And I go back and read that once in a while, but But what was I going to say? Something about, what was I? What was I going to say?
Well,
Oh, two.
we're just talking about BJ. Are there
Oh,
any?
I had the opportunity to introduce BJ at a Iowa Chiropractic Society meeting.
Really? Wow.
And I stood up and I wanted to be eloquent. Yeah. About 3 minutes into my eloquence, BJ stood up, shoved me aside, locked the doors. And he started, and I didn't know whether to feel good or bad, but at least I got to sit right next to him for a while. But he was mesmerizing in the speaker. You just go through those to the green books and just he could just go on and on and on. He was just an extraordinary thinker, and how he tried to justify chiropractic, how he tried to consolidate it, how he had to make it easier. Again, I was just bound determined I was going to be that way. I went off to Ann Arbor and studied with John Grostic for 3 years.
Oh, really?
Grostic was fantastic, but he told me, he said, Jack, you ain't going to get it. It just isn't there. And I accepted that because I didn't like to do how he did it. But I watched John Grostic in his office one night do miracles, just absolute miracles. Yeah. With an atlas adjustment, there's many more than that. Just like that. His analysis was perfect. But see, you can't sell something you don't own. I did not own that procedure. I owned somebody else's analysis procedure. And by God, you aren't going to change me because I'm smart enough to know better. We'll go blind. So that I've had so many great teachers. Oh my God. Oh,
who are some of the other faculty that really stand out to you?
The Quigley boys.
Sure. Yeah.
And Don Farrell, and Kitchens, and the head of radiology. What the hell?
Ramir.
Yeah,
Pers Ramir.
Yeah, Pers Ramir.
Yeah.
And Murphy. You're dragging out of the. Let's see. I'm going to miss somebody that's really important, and I'm sorry.
That's okay. Did you have was Herb Hender the dean of the school when you went?
Herb. We got to hear Herb. Herb was a class, just a class act, and then Herb. Then we had who has just been recently the president of Palmer. Who's recently? No, he just retired. His family.
I'm not sure.
Huh?
Kern.
Okay. Well, I had Pappy Kern.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for cranial anatomy, the brain. I mean, that was a catastrophe for me. I'm never going to get that. I'm never going to get that word. It's so much fun, but it turned out right. But it's just remarkable. He was like a buzzsaw. He's here. But he was delightful. Just delightful. And so then,
how long was the program when you went through then? Was it 18 months?
18 months. I was the last of the Mohicans.
Oh, okay. What did it go to after that?
It went to 4 years.
Oh, really? Months. Yeah. Okay. Wow. I didn't realize
I was there at the Lyceum when BJ announced it, going to 36. And I can tell you, there were more boos than applaud. Yet the applause is, everybody knew that in order to get over the facade of getting your degree from a series of a catalog, that we had to go to 4 years just for the public's sake. Not you can teach it. BJ said, I can teach you to be a good chiropractor in 6 weeks, but you have to learn the rest of your life how to do what I'm teaching you to do.
Right.
And that's exactly right. You learn the toggle, you learn the moves, but you learn the whys and the wherefores and the whens and the when not tos, and the nuances and the touch and the feel and the present time consciousness, how to be with that patient when you're with that patient, how to really justify your existence, and how to praise the Lord, because you're allowed to be a chiropractor. You're allowed to be in this space.
It is a blessing for sure to be a part of this profession.
Oh God! I couldn't ask for any more blessings. Really, could not ask for it. glory to God. I tell you, that's my theme at any rate. Yeah.
So
So
how did
yes.
you end up then meeting Dr. Thompson?
Well, Clay Thompson taught me hygiene,
Right?
and he was the worst teacher I ever had. But I loved it. I loved it. And you knew that he was filling space, that he had something else in mind. You knew that, and everybody forgave him because he was not a good teacher of hygiene. Anything
Right.
else he could teach you. So we knew, and then he had the recoil down. He wanted to get that recoil down. He invented a little machine, little wooden square thing with rubber bands across her type, maybe inner tube type thing, and maybe a ping pong ball in the middle of that thing. And he practiced that was his Speedo. He practiced that before in his office was in the basement of his house. And it was a torture to get down in the basement. I don't know how anybody with a bad back would ever got down or up. So, but he started his practice there and was very successful in his practice. And because he knew what he knew, and he owned it.
Yeah.
He owned it.
He used to
that
joke.
was gonna get pardon?
Oh, I was just gonna say he used to joke that teaching hygiene was really just a cover for teaching philosophy.
Yeah, it was. It really was. Because it was obvious that he didn't like to teach hygiene. But we praised him at any rate, because he had so many other good things to share with us. Well, I think hygiene was on the board. We had to have it for the Iowa Basic Science Board. So years ago, those days it was called the Iowa Basic Science Examination, and everybody in the healing arts took it. The MDs, osteopaths, chiropractors. And a lot of chiropractors weren't making it. A lot of chiropractors.
Really?
There was an instructor from the University of Northern Iowa that had the physiology part. He wasn't passing chiropractors. He just was not passing chiropractors. And in those days, I passed everything the first time except physiology. And you got $10. You put in $10. You got to take it 3 times. Well, after that, the next time I had to go to the Korean War.
Oh,
so went to the Korean War and served. That was quite an experience. I served as one of the medics, and I served as the registrar of a base hospital. That was a marvelous experience. But anyway, I came back, and my time had expired for that $10. So I sent him another $10, and I told him why I hadn't taken the test, and I wrote the text the next time. I was going to pass that test after I sent the check, because he sent me my check back and said, "Thanks for your service." And I got an 82 or 87.
Oh, that's nice.
So I've had so much luck. Oh.
So
yeah.
you went through your 18 months of chiropractic college.
Yes.
And then
I already had 2 years at the university.
okay.
All my basic sciences. So I did have a step up there. So
yeah, and plus then you had that time in the service. So how old were you when you actually started your practice?
Well, let's see, probably 21, 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'm not sure that I was old enough to get a license.
Oh my goodness.
I don't think there was some question about it. But I can't say that. Maybe I've told myself that, or maybe I can't remember what that.
Did you ever take any of the Thompson classes then that my grandpa
taught?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Then we got. In fact, I got to know Clay really well. I had his high-low, and he brought out the chest piece. Brought out to my office. I was in practice in Carroll, Iowa at that time, and a Sunday he brought out this upper, and I had a new high-low table, and he took that other piece off. I thought it was so good. Put his new piece on there, and he would like to have the cash for it. And we were all dirt poor at the time, but it was very easy to pay him for that. And of course, that was the one where you stepped on it. It wasn't hydraulic. You stepped on it and brought it up. And then I had another piece of equipment from Clay. At one time, he developed a cervical chair
Really?
Spherical chair.
Oh, was it like the toggle, like for a toggle
Yes.
coil? Yes.
You toggled against the wall and you had a chair, you jack them up, zero them in, and then you do this, and the thing would move this way or this way, depending on the rotation or the elevation or inferior, superior.
Wow. I wish I had that actually now. That would be awesome to
I
have.
would, yeah, I wish I had it too, but I had that, and I tried to use. I wasn't very successful with that. I was very successful with the chest drop, but not very, because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that I was fast enough at the dog, because Grostic told me I wouldn't. Anyway,
I think people, maybe some people don't realize that when my grandfather started to develop the full spine drop table,
yeah,
that the high-low table at that time was already perfection. So originally they did exactly what you said. They just developed drop pieces to be retrofitted on those old
that's
high-lows.
right. Yeah,
And then eventually, you know, they developed their own full spine drop table.
yeah.
But that's really, you're the only person I have ever spoken to that, you know, had one of those like retrofitted drop pieces. That's amazing.
I'm old.
Do you mind sharing with us how old you are?
I'm 93.
Wow, that is amazing.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
You look great.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I've
Where,
had good chiropractic care all my life. Yes.
that's for sure. Where did you set up your practice then? What town?
In a town called my father had a clinic in Jefferson where my brother was working with my father. And then I was too smart to work with my dad. You know, not the damn thing he could teach me. So I moved to this town 30 miles away. And I told my dad, I said, I need a car. And he said, you got any money? And he said, well, how the hell are you going to get a car? So anyway, I came over, had a couple of people that kind of helped me out a little bit. And I didn't have a car the first year I was in practice. I used to make house calls. I had one of those little neuroclimeter boxes, you know, had the neuroclimeter in it. And I'd take that box and somebody asked me to come see him, and I'd volunteer. I'd come out there, and I'd knock on 5 or 6 doors out in that territory. I'd tell them I'm looking for this house and who I was. I'm making a house call. Well, they'd say he lives right around the corner. He lives down here around the corner. And
Wow.
I did crazy things like the church one night. We were in such a drought. Everybody went to church to pray for it, and I took an umbrella, and by God, it rained while we were there. So, just crazy things like that have happened me all my lifetime. Yeah. So, anyway, what did I distract from?
You were just telling me about your practice. So did
Oh,
you
yes.
do a kind of a combination of upper cervical and full spine in your office?
I did everything.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear of Dr. Crane?
Oh, sure.
Crane table. I had a crane table made.
Oh, no,
yeah.
I didn't know that he had his own special table. What did that look
Sure.
like?
Yeah, it was like this, and then elevation here.
Okay.
Elevation like here, so it was narrow, so a patient could get up to it. And I had a high-low. And I had, this was all in one room. I had my x-ray machine. You'd have to turn it on for 40 minutes to get through anybody over 200 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
And in an office with only no air conditioning, the reception room would get up to 102 or 3 degrees. And finally, we broke through a wall and put an air conditioner back in the back. And, I just started to get busy. It just started to get busy. So I was learning all the time from my patients. I was learning all the time. And then, there's a whole story about how good chiropractic is. I had a wonderful practice. And a good friend of mine down in Audubon was having trouble. So we heard about Jim Parker's course. So Green Bay, Wisconsin, middle of December 1954, this was. We took a train from Carroll, Iowa, Chicago, and on up there to sit and listen to Jim Parker for 3 solid days.
Wow.
And he worked from the early morning till late at night, And I was learning all the time he was doing that. But Sunday we had a testimonial dinner after Sunday. There were about 100 chiropractors there. uh, from all over the country, Canadians. And I suddenly realized, like I had an epiphany, I realized I've been cleansed of negative thought. I have been absolutely cleansed of negative thought. I came home and my practice tripled and I didn't do anything different.
Wow, that's amazing.
Nothing different. And that happened to all of us. We had 40 guys in Northwest Iowa, not 30 or 40. We'd have brown bagger meetings once a month, boy. We'd meet the whole families and get together and so forth and so on. We built new clinic after new clinic after new clinic.
Wow.
But in fact, Jim Parker saved chiropractic in the 50s because practice guys were failing all over the country. They just
Were they
weren't
really?
Oh,
Wow.
really, really. The editorial comments were so severely against us. The month that I graduated, the Reader's Digest had about a 6-page article about quackery and chiropractic.
Mm.
You know, great things to reinforce you, great things and so it was difficult, but yeah, and they were having trouble all over. Jim started to teach this class of just office procedure, faith, confidence, and belief in your own product, service, and ideas. Let's talk about how wonderful chiropractic is. Let's talk about how good it is. Let's talk about why chiropractic. Nobody talks about the weather. You don't talk about anything else. You've got that limited time to talk to these people, and you're gonna educate them. This goes here. This goes here. I have a sign at the bottom of my toe. We used to have TWA, teach while adjusting. Don't talk about anything else.
Oh, I like that.
While they're there. Because you have just that simple opportunity for such a brief period of time. So I don't know, I'm getting distracted off the place, but Jim Parker brought chiropractic, I suppose nationwide. I know what he did for it in Iowa. We had,
Well,
I know we built 15, 20 new clinics.
yeah, I mean, in talking to some of my grandfather's friends,
Yeah.
it seems like several of them were really influenced greatly by Jim Parker.
Yes.
So I keep that his name keeps coming up. I sadly never did get to hear him speak. I don't know what year he passed away.
We started chiropractic college in Dallas, Jim Parker and a group of us. Of course, Jim was the force. And I just got off that board. I've been on that board for 25, 26 years.
Wow.
And we're now up maybe about 2,000 students.
Is that then the actual Parker? Is it Parker University?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that.
It's huge and it's beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, a devastating thing happened. I was there in October a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I walked around that campus because I was there when we bought the campus and now we remodeled it. Now we've done these things. And I was so proud of what we had done. I came home and the next weekend we had $40 million worth of damage by a tornado.
Oh no.
40, I mean, it just took us from stem to stern, wiped us out.
Wow.
God has blessings. We had buildings that needed new roofs. We had buildings that needed new air conditioning. We had a staff of people there that kept people virtually online going to school while we rebuilt that. I was just down there maybe 2 months ago, and it's gorgeous. The facilities are knock you out. They're so good. So, Jim always used to say, naturally right. Things are naturally right. But Clay Thompson and Jim would have been great friends. Great friends. In fact, they might have been, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think that my grandfather did speak there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
I know that
When did Clay die?
He passed away in 1995.
Oh yeah, sure. He would have. I'm trying to think of the people that taught his work because I took his classes.
Oh, the instructors, you mean? Some of his instructors are Dr. Mitchell from New Mexico. There were the Bradys, Alan and Terry Brady, from Australia. Zamelka, Wayne Zamelka, did you know him he taught up at Palmer?
Yeah.
Mitsu Shiakawa. I don't know what year Mitsu went to school.
Yeah.
Palmer. I mean, you probably went to school with many of the great chiropractors.
I've been blessed by knowing, Sid Williams was a good friend of mine. And,
Oh, really? Yeah,
uh,
I actually went to Life, so I knew Dr.
yeah,
Sid
yeah,
very
sure,
well.
sure, Sid, yeah.
Yeah.
And, uh, God, the guy in the red hat, so
Oh, I
who's
know what
our
you're
friend?
talking about.
Who's
I'm
our
blanking
friend?
out on it.
Who's our friend? Oh, God, I know his name better than I know my
Well, I
own.
know who you're talking about. We'll think of it. We'll put it in the
Yeah,
notes later.
yeah. He was such a friend. He would come out, and he lived in Georgia, Alpharetta, Georgia is where he was from. And he'd come out and he'd spend the wintertime, he'd come out and spend a week here. And he'd stay at our home, and he'd be adjusted twice or three times a day. Yeah, he was such a class act.
Yeah,
God,
I know who you're talking about. I met a person in Georgia
yeah.
because I lived in Georgia,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I met a
Yeah.
guy who had an injury as a child, and he had gone blind in
Yeah.
one eye, and he was at the home for the blind in Macon, Georgia. And
Mhm.
then your friend, that chiropractor who we're blanking out on his name,
Yeah.
he adjusted him
Yeah.
and he got his vision back. I mean,
Yes.
these are
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
common occurrences.
I don't want to give you one up, but if that happened to me once.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
tell us
Yeah.
about some of the exciting things that happened throughout your career.
Oh, God. Oh, God. I'd say I've just been blessed with good instructors. Geez, I got to know Gonstead really well. I got to know Grostic really well. Got to know the transition came from me is I needed more I needed more. It came to me. It came to me. And I was a force adjuster. Boy, in fact, I'd gone up to Gonstead's place and he'd invite me in and we'd sit there and all day long. I'd watch the hands on, and he could adjust with such grace and such charm, but he had hands so huge. And
Yeah.
it was just like a little flick, Me, I'd be torquing like that. And he was, but I learned I had a I had a problem. I was president of our local chamber of commerce, and we had, ever hear donkey basketball?
Oh
No,
yeah, we have that
I've
here
heard
still.
donkey basketball. Well, I was on a donkey and it
Oh
wasn't
no.
bucking very hard. So
Yeah.
the guy come along and goosed it. I went off on my neck and shoulders.
Oh
And I
boy.
couldn't, and I couldn't walk. My knee
Oh
was
man.
absolutely just couldn't walk. So I taped it for, gosh, and I went to my dad, went to brother, went to all over. The only thing they told me, and finally, this surgeon said, "Well, we can open it up and see what's wrong." And I said, "No, I struggled out." Then I heard about this little Cossack guy from California that was teaching some new work. I name it Van Rump. I always kind of liked his name, Van Rump.
Yeah.
So I walked into the classroom. I'm always an early riser, get there early in this class. We're down Dallas. Walked in, I introduced myself, and he said, "Boy, you've got a back problem." I said, "No, I don't, but I got a knee problem. Come on up here." So I went up, laid down his table, and he did this little checking here, checking here, checking here, and checking here. What he really found was my third lumbar. He adjusted my third lumbar. And he said, "Oh, I'll check that again tonight before we go through." And my mind says, I'm tearing the checkup. I'm out of here. This voodoo is not going to work for me, not at all. I got up, walked off that stage, probably 90% better. This has been going on for 6 months, 8 months.
Wow.
Went out and walked up and down 2 or 3 flights of stairs. Come back in, and I was in the front row. I was the first one to come and the last one to go. I knew I had something totally I knew nothing about. I wanted to learn it. So that was a thrill to make that transition. All my patients were used to high-low Thompson procedures and so forth and so on. Back to all non-force work. Just that was an interesting thing too. But I knew that I had something. I knew that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
So we got on. That was a great experience. And then we got so bad that my right thumb got twice as big as my left one. And I was developing all this chest problem from the ribs clacking in from too much resting. And I heard about a guy in Minnesota. Arlen Furr was his partner, and they had a gun that was going to do that.
Uh-huh.
So I tripped it up there. Sure, I tripped up there, and I wasn't too sure about that, but I like the checking procedure. I like the checking. I like this procedure, that procedure. Gosh, we went from about 4 places to do up to over 100 places to react with that thing. So I really became converted even more. Went to activator, and that was a great experience. Had a lot of fun with activator. Helped to do a lot of research with activator. Sent the people over to Belgium so we could open up the spine and adjust right on the spine with activator.
Wow.
You'd see what it did. And did you ever hear Chris Kalaka?
Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
well, Chris is a very good friend of mine too.
Oh, nice.
And he was the brains behind the research. Arlen provided the money. We'd go beg, borrow, and steal. And what the hell's that guy's name? I'll turn over tonight in bed. About that.
Well, any names you think of after the fact, you can send me a message and I can add it in the comments section. So we can get to it later. Don't worry.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm just rattling on here. That we got a long way to play Thompson. Yeah.
It seems like you really had so many tools in your toolbox. And that's so important because, you want to be able to take care of anyone that comes in the office. You have to know more than one technique.
Yeah.
So it seems like you had a wonderful journey of learning many techniques.
I think Clay was frustrated because DJ, he thought Atlas was going to do it. Clay found out that Atlas didn't do it. And Clay moved from this basement office to a really lovely office. I had a good friend of mine also was in Colorado that was an intern for Clay.
Oh, is
Clay
it Bob Jackson?
No. He was on the board of trustees at Park University with me.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure who it was.
Nice guy. I can't tell you. I don't remember.
I know we had a lot of interns. I don't know them. I could ask my mom though. She worked in the office some, so she knew.
He was extraordinary to his interns. Helped them, taught them. Was a good teacher. Didn't ever criticize. He said, "Yeah, you just got it right, and you're almost right. But let me look at it this way, just a little different." He was a kind teacher.
Oh.
Kind teacher. Like, you can see, you look at an X-ray and you say, well, yeah, I can really see why you might see it that way. But let's take a look at it over here. You never say, "Hey, stupid, look over here." Like some instructors were pretty good at that humiliating students. But not Clay. Clay was good. But he was like a buzzsaw. I mean, he was like a buzzsaw. He just moved all the time. Yeah.
He was busy. He had a lot of energy.
Yes, he did. He did. Yeah, he did. And he was, he was just another example of all the wonderful people that I've stood on the shoulders of. Just, oh God, where would I be without those people? Look at all the, look at the energy they put into the chiropractic field. Look at the people they touched as chiropractors. And then look at the number of people as chiropractors touch. Think about that.
I often think about, many people have heard of the big names, like Gonstead and Thompson and all of that. But I mean, when we really think back in our chiropractic history, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe, of chiropractors who nobody's heard of. But because of them, lives have been saved. And here we are today, still with a great profession. And we need to give credit to all of those people that maybe we've never heard of, but they sacrifice just as much financially, time with their family, all of it. Just like, they sacrifice just as much as the people we hear about all the time.
Clay suffered. Clay suffered. Van I know these guys. I know personally. I know how important it was to make when you bought their equipment to pay for it on the spot, or sometimes advance payment. I knew how important that was.
Yeah, I know when there was a year that when my grandfather was on the faculty, at Palmer. And this was after he had developed the headpiece, and all of the faculty got a raise except my
Yeah.
grandfather. And when he said, why didn't I get a raise too? They said, well, you're making all that money off the headpiece. But you know what people don't realize is that every penny they got went back into paying the attorneys, applying for
Sure.
patents.
Oh,
And so,
yeah.
they really,
Yeah.
my grandparents really struggled for a long time.
Yes, they
And
did. Yeah, they did.
people just don't realize what goes on behind the scenes
And
always.
that's not unusual for a guy out there trying to develop seminars and to teach seminars. That's expensive to advertise your seminar, to get the hotel room, to guarantee the hotel room, to guarantee transportation, to rely on people coming in and paying, and for applying those checks and bouncing, all those little contingencies while you're trying to do this service. So you just had to have a mindset that it's going to be all right.
That's
going
right.
to be all right. It's going to be all right. And react with faith based on your own free will. This, if I have right intent, this is going to be okay. And that's what those wonderful guys did for us.
Right.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Were you involved with the organization of all of the big Parker seminars over the years?
Yes, I've been involved with Parker I just got off the board, maybe. I've been involved since we started.
Wow.
I was off the board. You can only stay so long. Then I was off the board, then I went back on again.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still the case, but I know for many, many years, Parker seminars were the biggest seminars, in the world, probably.
We had a seminar one time, 7,777.
My goodness. Wow.
And Jim, we sat in the board meeting and Jim said, we're going to have a seminar in Las Vegas, 7,007. And there wasn't a person on that board that believed that. Not one of us believed it. And he overpowered us. And we did have 7,777. We still have huge seminars. We've had some different management seminars. We got our right intent back online. Some people, you get really successful. You can waver, you can get off track. And as all organizations, and we have taken our bumps, our bruises, and we're back with extraordinary people at the helm, extraordinary people with the seminars. I go to a seminar, the state seminar there. BJ, if you said you should drink more water, that was mixed. Okay, I mean, go to a seminar today and there's booth after booth after booth. Tickle them, touch them, do all these things. To me, as an old-time chiropractor, if you only knew, the only thing you had to do was this, the only thing you had to do was that, but you have to go through those things. I learned by failure. I learned by dumping my butt a lot of times, I'm sure. But it's just a different mindset. Just wonderful people selling these modalities, guys.
Yeah, I mean, like my grandpa would always say, that he never really criticized the modalities. Those things probably do help people, but none of those things correct subluxation. And since we are the only experts in locating and correcting subluxation, that's how he chose to spend his time. And that's how a lot of us feel. Like we're not really down on that stuff, but we'd rather spend our limited time, actually focused on the correcting subluxation.
When you had BJ, I tell you don't touch anything but Atlas. You don't do anything. Even when we talk about trauma toxins thoughts, the only thing you talk about is traumatic influence. We know today that stress is probably the biggest cause of subluxation that there is.
Yeah, the body's inability to deal with stress. That's the cause. That's right.
The negative feelings. And of course, we talked about negative feelings. Just negative feelings are accumulative, last forever unless you can shed it, build a barrier, which all those things. Did you ever hear Ted Morter?
Yes, of course. Yes, I did. I do know.
Ted's a good friend of mine. I've studied Ted for a long time. Did you ever hear Scott Walker?
Scott Walker?
With NET?
I don't know that. I don't know him.
Well, he's a fantastic researcher. In fact, I just talked to him yesterday or the day before. He's in California. But Ted Morter, I probably do more mortar work than anything. No.
Really? Wow.
Mortar work. Just don't do. I have a young man that I sold my practice to, And he hasn't taken the keys away from me, so he lets me come in and mess with it once in a while, which I go probably every day for a little bit. But yeah, and I love it. Well, another thing, it had solved a problem for me. I had artificial hip, I had my hip replaced, artificial hip, and it didn't work. I mean, I'm 3 months out, 4 months out, and I'm still using a walker. The pain is so severe. So I called him, he's a good friend of mine, and I called him and he said, "You don't sound like you." And I said, "Oh." And I told him what was going on. He said, "Get down here, get down here." So I had a young chiropractic student that I had, Palmer, and Palmer had a break. I said, "Okay, we're going to Rogers, Arkansas." Off we went. I threw away my walker the first day. The second day, I could help drive my car.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the pain was totally gone. Yeah, so see, I had another blessing, another place to go, another thing to do.
I wish that we could just like copy your brain and all of that knowledge you have in there of all those techniques. I wish we could just bottle that up so we could all have some of that. That's wonderful.
It's a sifting process.
Mhm.
You know, truly, if you just, the body talks to us, literally talks to us.
Mhm.
Ben Rump taught me that. The body will talk to you. What? The body will talk to you. Just listen, just listen. Observe, see what happens, what you feel here. Oh, this is a funny story, funny story. After I was in practice in Carroll, I was a very busy guy. My brother built a new office and he didn't leave kind of a space for my dad. And so my dad was 80. So anyway, so he said, "You should retire, Dad, you should retire." So driving my mother crazy. One day my mother called and she said, "I got a favor." "What?" "Anything." My mother's favorite person in the world. My dad, not so much. And he said, "I want you to call your dad and have more work for you a couple of days a week." I said, "Mother, why do you think I left home? Why do you think?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, then have him call me." He said, "No, you call him." So I did. So he came over and he said, "Well, let me think about it for a couple of days." Had me right where I was, 18 years old. So he came over and he said, "Well, yeah, I got some rules. These are my rules. This rule, this rule, this one. And this, he just set up some rules." And he said, "Just give me 10 patients you're having difficulty with." My pride says, I don't have a patient having difficulty with. I had 30 patients that I was clamoring trying to fix. So he took those 10 patients. A month later, he said, "I need some more people."
Oh my
Did they
goodness.
quit? Did they quit? No, they're doing pretty good. Gave them 10 more. The third month, I come out my adjusting room and I heard the phone rang and somebody wanted an appointment with a senior doctor.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I got Jesus right there. I turned around and went back in the room where he was doing. I said, "Dad, you're doing something I don't know anything about. Let me help you. You help me." We stood and hugged and cried for 5 minutes, I think, and I had the opportunity to work with him
Wow.
for about 3 years during the best time when he wasn't trying to prove anything. He was just trying to say, "This is what works. This is what works. Look here, watch this. You see this." People would come into the parking lot in the office. They say, "I started to feel better as soon as I saw your dad's car here."
Mm-hmm.
It was great, another great lesson from a great guy. And he was a fantastic chiropractor, fantastic. But he also transitioned through all these things, all these things. He was strictly HIO at one time, and then finally he got into Van Rump.
Mm-hmm.
Van Rump's woods moved him along. After I got into it, he really got into it, but he really did it. So yeah, I just been blessed to have the time to let these people pound into my head. So lots of great chiropractors out there.
Do you have children that became
Yeah.
chiropractors?
No.
No.
My brother had 2, and my sister had 2, and mine are lawyers and manufacturers. So yeah, one of our boys is an attorney, and both he and his wife are attorneys in Columbus, Ohio. He graduated from Michigan Law School, and my next son is an attorney in Washington, D.C. He graduated from Georgetown, and he was a Redskins chief operating officer for the Washington Redskins.
How awesome is that?
So
Wow.
we had a lot of fun going into games. And then my youngest son's in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and his wife is on the faculty at the University of Alabama. She got a PhD when he was working at the University of Mexico, and that's how they met.
Gosh,
That's our family.
your kids are all over the place then.
All over the place. We might as well never had any grandkids because we never got to see them. Yeah.
Well, is there any, I mean, I think by listening to you talk, if you were going to give advice to chiropractic students, it would definitely be to keep learning, always learning. But is there anything else, any other advice you would give to students or practicing chiropractors?
Any more than BJ said, get the big idea and all else follows. Get the big, and it takes a while for the big idea to soak in because you don't think you're capable of accepting a big idea. You can accept a little bit of it, but just allow yourself, don't get jealous, don't get anxious, just allow yourself to grow within the profession, to grow within what you can do, to allow chiropractic to work for you. And then all of a sudden it's the most fun you can have. It is the most fun you can have. It's just exciting. It's just fun because you know that as I'll get
Bill,
that.
his name was Bill.
Bill Harris.
Bill,
That's
Who we're
right.
talking
That's
about.
right.
That's
Dr.
it.
Harris.
That's
That's
it.
right. Thank you, Dr. Bill Harris.
Thanks to my wife. He used
Thank you.
he used to send her big bouquets of roses. He kind of had the Hotspur life, I think.
He would visit Life College quite a bit when I was in school there. He must have been close with Sid.
He was just, I was so blessed. He just called me one day and he said, "Are you going to Lyceum?" That was in Davenport. I said, "Yeah." He said, "We're going to room together."
Oh, wow.
And I said, I didn't know him. I knew about him, but I didn't know him. I said, "Is this Bill Harris?" Yeah, this is Bill Harris. This Bill Harris. And I said, "Well, Bill, this is Jack Donovan." He said, "I know who I'm talking to." And so we just said, I just was so blessed to be in his presence intimately in his presence for a long time. He told so many stories about the Palmers.
Oh, wow.
You
know, Palmer's having their big celebration this fall.
Yeah.
Are you coming to Davenport for that?
No, I'm not. I don't drive that far anymore. I just I don't walk as well as I used to. Brady Street Hill would kill me. I worked at Oscar Mayer Packing Plant. You know where that was in Davenport?
Yes, I do know where that is, right on 60.
And I worked there, and I'd get off at midnight, and I'd walk through then I'd walk up Brady Street Hill.
Oh my
to
gosh.
the top of 10th and Perry. I swore if I ever got a car, I was going to come to Davenport. I was going to drive that Brady Hill flat. I was going to drive it flat.
Subsequently, later, that's quite a walk from that Oscar Mayer plant. That's a long walk.
I ran
to get to Brady Street.
It was dark. I ran.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a party.
I ran. I lost a lot of weight.
I would run there too, I think.
Yeah,
I think they may have torn that down. I don't know, but yeah. Well, listen, would you mind doing this again sometime? If there's anything, if there's anything else that you think about.
I think you're delightful.
Well, I thank you. Likewise, I'm so happy to meet you. So we'll kind of wrap up for today, but we can certainly do this again if you just get in touch.
I'd be happy to if I can do anything to help charge anybody, get anybody jump started.
Yes,
I'm just happy to be. I'm happy to be involved.
You've had a very inspiring and blessed life, and it's been a joy speaking with you today.
Thank you very, very much. You're very kind. Pretty too.
You have a good evening, and I will keep in touch with you for sure.
Thank you, Beth. I
Thank
really enjoyed
you.
this.
Tell your wife thank you also.
I
And
will.
God bless. You guys have a good night.
It's always in the background helping more than you can imagine.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's see.